Have you ever wondered why some men, even with the best intentions, seem to fail at arousing interest and admiration in women? Perhaps you yourself at some point felt that by being kind, dedicated, and always present, you ended up not being valued or even left aside. The truth, warrior, is that the answer to this enigma is not in the good you do for them, but in what you fail to understand about yourself and the dynamics that govern attraction. Being a good guy is often not your strong suit, but rather a trap that traps you in standards that obscure your value. Pleasing all the time, giving up your interests, and always being available may seem like noble attitudes, but in reality, they can drag you to a place of fragility and little relevance. If you look around you, you will realize that it is not those who flatter themselves or give in to the desires of others who earn respect and admiration. Women, especially high-value women, have a keen sensitivity to recognize when a man is willing to sacrifice his own dignity in exchange for crumbs of approval. And this type of posture rarely arouses desire or fascination. On the other hand, men who know what they want, who are faithful to their principles, who have a clear purpose, usually exert a natural magnetism. They seem so sure of who they are, so convinced of their positions that they arouse curiosity and often a certain challenge that encourages women to want to get to know them better. It is no coincidence that the great Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, and Zeno of Citium, are remembered to this day for their unwavering strength. These were not men begging for acceptance or attention, but people who lived by a set of deep principles, cultivating discipline, integrity, and self-control. The consequence of this was the genuine admiration of those around them, since the internal security they carried was evident in every action, in every word, in every choice. And it is this same security, this same inner strength that becomes a magnet when it comes not only to women, but to all human relationships. Perhaps you have already realized that many of the mistakes that drive women away come from attitudes that at first glance seem too kind or affectionate. The problem arises when the dose of concern for others is so high that you forget about yourself. When you place the woman as the center of your universe and do everything to please her, without even questioning whether this is aligned with your truth, your values, and your essence. These attitudes may seem benevolent, but in reality, they sound like weakness, and there is nothing less attractive for any human being than someone who cancels themselves to live for another. Therefore, I invite you to immerse yourself in this path of discovery, to understand why certain postures make you lose value in the eyes of a woman and how it is possible to reverse this situation, recovering your dignity and, above all, the feeling of being in control of life itself. But remember, the truths you will find here may hurt your ego, especially if you are used to thinking that being nice or being available is enough to be admired. The reality is that admiration is born from respect, and respect is born from inner strength, from conviction, from a sense of identity that is not shaken by the possibility of being upset. Let's explore each of these mistakes that so many men make, without even realizing that by doing so, they are moving further and further away from what they are really looking for. Not just a woman's attention, but a genuine and authentic connection based on respect and trust, mutual attraction. And along this path, we will observe what the Stoics would have to say about each of them, who were masters at keeping the mind free of external disturbances and prioritizing what is truly valuable. Let's start then with the question of excessive availability. Maybe you've already been there. You met someone interesting, you felt a connection, you wanted to be helpful and kind, and then suddenly you realized that you were always there at any moment, doing everything she asked, canceling commitments, changing your schedules to the point of feeling a little lost. Somehow, you thought that by always being willing, he would start to like you more. But what happened in practice was the opposite. Instead of closeness, there was distancing, a feeling of boredom, or even contempt. Why is this happening? Because human beings in general tend not to value what is immediately available all the time, without criteria, without limits. Let's think about a valuable resource of nature. Drinking water from a scarce source, for example, is an object of struggle and veneration. But tap water, which flows easily at no apparent cost, rarely catches our attention. In relationships, it's similar. What is given in such an abundant way, and without any criteria, ends up being considered banal. When it comes to attraction, it's even more amazing. Over-availability conveys a profound message that you have nothing more important in your life, that the center of your world is someone else's desires. And as much as people like attention, they also want someone who has their own ambitions, goals, and a sense of direction that doesn't waver with each new interaction. Marcus Aurelius, for example, had the responsibility of ruling a gigantic empire on his shoulders, and yet he still found time to reflect, strengthen his discipline, and invest in self-knowledge. Would you drop everything to immediately respond to a momentary whim from someone you barely know? Of course. So remember, the antidote to this mistake is to have a life full of purpose. Occupations ranging from your work, studies, physical exercise, hobbies, personal projects, spiritual practices, or anything that leads you to become a better person. When you have a purpose, it is not that you refuse to pay attention to the woman you are interested in, but that you will consider it and only make space in your agenda in a coherent way, without neglecting what is essential for your life: growth. This immediately conveys that you respect your own time and consequently creates the perception in others that your time is valuable. Another delicate issue is the excess of shared emotions. We are all emotional beings, it is true, and no one is telling you to become a stone of ice, incapable of feeling or showing affection. The point is that when you open yourself too much, without any filter, you can transmit instability and dependency. Often what you call opening your heart can sound more like an emotional cry for help. And instead of attracting empathy or wanting to bring the person closer, this can suffocate, pressure, and exhaust. Of course, there are times when it's natural to share vulnerabilities. Having a shoulder to lean on is important, and a real relationship is also built on the ability to share fears and insecurities. However, it is necessary to have discernment. Not everything should be released like an uncontrollable whirlwind of feelings. Seneca, for example, endured exiles, political betrayals, and painful losses, but his attitude was not one of unbridled lament, but one of thoughtful reflection, of searching for lessons. He turned pain into fuel for wisdom, not a speech of self-pity that demanded constant attention from others. When you uninterruptedly deliver your whirlwind of emotions, the woman may feel overwhelmed by the role of caregiver. And although at first it may seem like a bond of intimacy, over time it becomes a relationship of dependency that, for most people, is exhausting. A man who masters his emotions is not one who ignores them, but rather one who understands them and guides them towards solutions, reflections, and concrete actions. When you show that you are willing to face obstacles, transform, and learn, admiration grows organically. Let's talk now about the pedestal. Placing someone on a pedestal is like viewing the person through a lens of perfection, ignoring their flaws and humanities. This idealization may seem romantic at first, but in practice, it is toxic for both of you. For you, who will inevitably be disappointed to discover that no one lives up to the image of perfection you projected, and for her, who may feel the pressure of being an untouchable goddess, immune to failure. There is nothing less seductive than the lack of a sense of reality. When you elevate someone to an almost divine level, you are actually lowering yourself. It is obvious that he does not consider himself worthy of walking next to her, and without realizing it, you send clear signals of insecurity and inferiority. Women, contrary to what many think, do not want to be worshipped to the point of feeling uncomfortable on top of an altar. They want to be recognized, valued, and above all, challenged to be better, just as they want someone who is also continually growing. This blind idolatry, therefore, removes all naturalness from interactions. Instead of an encounter between two people with different personalities, virtues, defects, and life stories, you create an abyss, placing them in an unattainable place, and you, servile at the bottom, trying to climb. And in these types of dynamics, there is no place for mutual respect. To be respected, it is essential that you also respect yourself, and this includes seeing others as human beings, not as a deity. Another mistake that deserves attention is agreeing with everything. In many cases, this behavior arises from the fear of being disliked. You think that by contradicting her, you might seem too tough, stubborn, and that she won't like you. So you repress your opinions, your perspectives, maybe even your principles, so as not to generate any kind of conflict. However, a stoic man knows that truth and authenticity are more valuable than false harmony. It's not about fighting or creating unnecessary conflicts. It's about having the courage to take a stand, to say what you think, to support a point of view. When all you do is agree, you lose the opportunity to show your intelligence, your discernment, and above all, your personality. Differences of opinion, when approached with respect and openness, can be extremely attractive as they bring growth to both parties. Women, in general, are not looking for a constant "yes, ma'am." They appreciate a man who knows how to dialogue, question, argue, because this demonstrates mental vitality and independence. It is important, therefore, to stand firm when something touches your values. If she says something that directly conflicts with what you believe, don't pretend to agree. Express your position respectfully but confidently. The ability to hold a point of view calmly and politely reveals maturity and strength of character. And this strength is an attribute that arouses interest, as it indicates that you are not there just to please, but to be yourself, with all your nuances, ideas, and convictions. Now let's talk about chasing too much. How many times have you heard stories of men who, after insisting, calling, sending messages, buying gifts, and insistently proposing, ended up scaring the woman away forever? Some insist that this is the way. Insist until you conquer it. But reality shows that when interest is not reciprocated, going further only generates discomfort and disgust. The act of chasing too much reveals desperation. And, as we have already said, desperation is the enemy not only of attraction, but of respect. When you show that you are willing to do anything, even giving up your self-love, to have her by your side, what do you expect her to think? That you are a confident and focused man, or that you have no perspective, no sense of boundaries, and need their approval at all costs? The result of this posture most of the time is the frustration of seeing the other person moving further and further away. People are drawn to a sense of balance, of challenge, of discovery. When you are excessively present, you send the opposite message, that there is nothing to discover in yourself, since you give yourself completely without valuing yourself. And that quickly destroys any initial interest. Therefore, the key is to reverse this behavior, cultivating your own personal growth, your ambitions, your activities. Instead of chasing, start attracting. Finally, there is an error closely linked to authenticity: hiding your true opinions. It is similar to agreeing with everything, but it has a different nuance. Sometimes you even disagree, but choose not to say anything. He remains silent, pretends he doesn't even have an opinion. And this silence is not one of stoic wisdom. It is one of cowardice, of fear of other people's judgment. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus were clear examples that even in tense and dangerous political scenarios, the essence of a free man lies in being faithful to what he believes. When you silence your own voice, you are wasting the opportunity to express who you are and also to be respected for your convictions. The woman may even be surprised to learn that you disagree, but if you know how to clearly defend your vision, you will have much more impact than someone who agrees, or worse yet, omits herself completely. In the end, all these mistakes, from excessive availability to the attitude of desperately pursuing someone, come from the same place: the fragility of identity and the lack of respect for oneself. Are you so confident in who you are and what you represent? Or do you live in a state of insecurity, thinking that you need to mold yourself to win someone over? If your answer leans towards the second option, remember what Epictetus said about freedom. It is born when you free yourself from what is outside your control, and the reaction of others, including one woman in particular, is almost always out of his control. By standing firm in what is essential to you, by fearlessly expressing your opinions, by not canceling yourself out of fear of losing someone, you exude an energy of strength that anyone, man or woman, can feel. It's the energy of someone who knows that the world doesn't revolve around one person and that life is too precious to waste chasing empty approvals. It is the posture of someone who wakes up in the morning and says, "Today, I will be a better version of myself. If anyone wants to accompany me on this trip, they are welcome. If not, my path continues and I continue to grow." This, warrior, is what the Stoics would call true virtue, and it is what, in fact, generates respect, admiration, and desire. When you stop being the nice guy who pleases everyone and become the authentic man who honors your values, you free yourself from a cycle of frustration. You realize that you don't need to chase acceptance because you will naturally attract those who truly identify with your essence. And in the process, he becomes much more interesting in the eyes of women. And now, after everything we've discussed, the question remains: are you ready to get out of these traps that keep you hostage to behaviors that sabotage your own dignity? Are you prepared to live according to what you truly believe, without fear of rejection? Are you ready to absorb the wisdom of men like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, and apply it to everyday challenges, making every relationship a reflection of your true worth? If the answer is yes, then you understand that to be admired, it is not necessary to humiliate yourself or beg. It is necessary, on the contrary, to rise up, strengthen ourselves, recognize that the power to enchant is not in the constant sacrifice of one's own interests, but in the ability to maintain focus on a greater purpose. When you regain self-respect, you also regain the power to choose how and with whom you relate. Therefore, think of what we talked about today as a warning, a call for you to abandon the attitude of pleasing at all costs and embrace the path of authenticity. Remember the firmness of Marcus Aurelius in the face of the crises of the Roman Empire. Remember Seneca's resilience in the face of exile. Avoid falling into the trap of thinking that to win someone over you have to give up who you are. True achievement begins with your internal posture, in the way you lead your life and manage your emotions. Also, remember that this change will not happen overnight. It is a process that requires self-knowledge, practice, and sometimes a few steps back before truly moving forward. But there is no more rewarding journey than the one that leads to emotional freedom and the understanding that you don't need to beg for anyone's approval. Instead, you find that by adopting your own principles, the right people will naturally gravitate toward you, and those who drift away may never have a real affinity with the real you. And so we come to the crucial moment. Are you ready to stop living for the validation of others and start living for yourself? Are you willing to abandon the mask of the nice guy who does everything for everyone, but deep down feels empty and unrecognized? Will you accept the challenge of becoming a truly stoic man who directs himself, who controls his emotions, who respects and consequently is respected? If this is your moment of change, if you feel that the time has come to rescue your value and authenticity, then I want to invite you to take the first step. Don't let this knowledge remain just theory. Start now with small actions to reverse the mistakes we discussed. Set priorities, set limits. Don't be afraid to express your opinions in a balanced way, and above all, value yourself. This is the path that will lead you to be seen not only as a good man, but as an admirable, confident man, someone worth knowing and conquering. And if you've made it this far, I have a special request of you. Leave your like, and if you can, give that super like to show that this content really made a difference for you. Subscribe to the channel to continue following reflections that will help you grow, evolve, and find your own path of authenticity. And share this video with other warriors who can also benefit from these truths. Let's build together a community of men who value each other, who know each other, and who live each day with more purpose. After all, the world needs more genuine people, and it starts with each of us. So, warrior, do you accept the challenge? If the answer is yes, it's time to make it happen.